Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit more about my ebook, my self-published ebook, Voices from the Inside, Letters from Famous Prisoners. I'm going to read the chapters. First is Introduction, Corresponding with Prisoners, in which I describe why I corresponded with prisoners. And about half of them wrote back. When I wrote to somebody, sometimes I wrote back, sometimes I didn't. Okay. Chapter first is Charles Manson and Company. And I write about basically my friendship that developed with Charles Manson. I did develop a friendship with him because not only did we correspond, we also talked on the phone several times. And I go into that at length in the book. And I also corresponded with Robert Bobby Beausoleil, Lynette Squeaky Frome, and Charles Tex Watson. Chapter 2 is Carlton Michael Gary, the Columbus Stocking Strangler. That was the case of a young black man who in Columbus, Georgia, would rape and beat or strangle elderly white women. And chapter 3 is Eric Robert Rudolph, a morally motivated murderer. He does stick out from the other murderers because of his motivation had to do with his political, social, and moral beliefs, which were right-wing, anti-abortion, anti-homosexuality, anti-socialism. Chapter 4, Serial Murder and the Entanglements of Adoption. I don't want to contribute to any prejudice against adoptees who, as a group, do very well, and nor do I want to in any way stigmatize adoption. Okay, but adoptees are overrepresented in serial murder. Okay, now, and so I have, and then I wrote to both David, son of Sam Berkowitz, and Lawrence Pliers Bittaker about the reasons for asking them what they thought the reasons for this were. And our correspondence followed from that. Then, there's a chapter for David Berkowitz and a chapter for Lawrence Bittaker. Then chapter 7 is Moore's murderer Ian Brady, Britain's most hated man. And he was hated. In prison, he was hated. They transferred him to a mental hospital after a couple of decades. They had to isolate him completely because the other prisoners were biding their time. They wanted to get at him. What was the reason? The Moore's murderers, he and his girlfriend, Myra Hindley, had abducted, abused 5 children and teenagers. Youngest victim, 10 years old. Oldest victim, 17. Was he hated. Chapter 8, Jeremy Strohmeyer and the murder of Sharice Iverson. I'm actually doing a book on that one. That was the case of a 18-year-old affluent white man who murdered a 7-year-old black girl in a casino restroom after sexually abusing her. Apparently there was no racial motivation, although there is some dispute about that. But there again, adoption played into that one as well, because Jeremy Strohmeyer was adopted, and his adoptive parents, didn't have all the information about his biological parents that they should have. The other thing about it is I do think race played a role in the fact that the case did not get as much publicity as cases involving white children, especially affluent white children, tend to get. Chapter 9, Abortion, Women's Freedom, and Child Abuse. Why do I have that in there? Because the next chapter after that is about Renee and Sean Neasley and asks if abortion factored in a toddler's killing. Renee Neasley was convicted in the murder of her child, although she says it was actually done by her boyfriend, not by her. But Sean Neasley was murdered. The little toddler was murdered the day after his mother had an abortion. The trauma of an abortion could have triggered a problem that led to that child's death. Okay, chapter 9.